Back, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching India Tonight with me, Sumita Karir, and my colleague Shibani Gharat. Now, the Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman today announced during the Union Budget 2026-27 that the new Income Tax Act 2025 will be coming into effect from April 2026 and that simplified income tax rules and forms will be notified shortly. In fact, the ministry is all set to set up a joint committee to modify to sort of do away with separate accounting requirements, and that is going to be based on ICDS from tax year 2027 to 28. And to decode what that announcement essentially means, we now have Gokul Chaudhary, Deloitte India's tax leader, joining us live here on ET Now. Thank you very much, Mr. Chaudhary, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET Now. First things first, with respect to the new Income Tax Act that is all set to come into effect from April 2026, what are your key observations as far as what is this going to sort of lead to a simplified tax regime, but what all is this going to essentially lead to as far as tax collection for the government is concerned?
Well, I think you're completely right that the finance minister did emphasize on the fact that the 1st of April 2026, we will get a new act. This act has been in making for a while. It's got legislated previously, and we are now keenly awaiting the rules which will underpin the act. The important part is that when the government embarked on this new act, they said we want to simplify the act so that taxpayers can comply with the law far more simply. What they have now proposed is a set of compliance measures which they hope to make the working of this act far more simpler too. So it's not just a policy that's been simplified, it's also the procedures that are going to be simplified. And that is also aimed towards the fact that they want to ease some of the compliances for the taxpayer. So I think the government is really serious about this whole process of simplification so that the compliance burden on society and the ease of living improves. So I think it's an important measure that our country is going to be going through this transformation. I'll make only one comment here. We've seen the very profound rollout of the GST, which happened previously, and they try to bring GST into the mainstream of the entire indirect tax framework, and we can see the outcome has been tax buoyancy on the indirect tax side. So I'm very confident that even with the new Income Tax Act, one of the objectives which will be achieved is better buoyancy in taxes.
A simple question I want to ask you, in fact, from a taxpayer's perspective, like a common taxpayer like I am, if you can help us understand how does the new Income Tax Act actually make things simpler for the common person, for the taxpayer, as compared to, the previous one? And do we really will have to go to our CAs, while filing tax from here on?
I think the government is very keen to make sure that for individual taxpayers, firstly, people up to a certain threshold are not in the tax bracket and therefore are not going to be subjected to income tax in the first place, which is a reform measure that they did last year to make the threshold go up to 12 lakhs. So really make sure people who are up to a certain threshold are not going to be within the tax net per se. The second thing that they've tried to do is try to make sure that they can work towards a pre-filled tax return such that the amount of work that a per individual has to do to compile for his taxes goes down. Third, they brought in a new tax measure, which is to say you give up your exemptions, you give up your deductions, and we give you a lower rate, which means less paperwork, less compliances, less amount of tracking, and of course, therefore, less amount of an audit risk.
Chaudhary, so then essentially when you talk about less audit risk, less amount of compliances, are we essentially looking at a demand boost given the fact that, the GST rate rationalization exercise which took place last year, it did lead to unleashing of demand, and we did see those numbers last year in October and November. But is this going to lead to sort of a further demand boost coming in, given the fact that the simplification is going to be the key feature of these new income tax rules?
Well, I can assure you that the new or the intention of the new act and the new rules is to have less headaches for the taxpayers. Um, Unlike the GST cut and unlike the previous personal tax rate cut, which was to try and get more cash in the hands of the taxpayers. So I think what we are seeing here is more of a less of a nuisance, less of a headache. But of course, as far as cash is concerned, I don't think that is going to be impacted by the new Income Tax Act.
Mr. Chaudhary, thank you so much. Due to dearth and paucity of time, we'll have to wrap this discussion. But thank you so much for joining us and giving your inputs on the budget 2026.